Welcome to MetalVice in 666. I'm your host, Brian, joining the other host,
Kieran.
And for this episode, we're going to be talking about another movie sort of event thing that we went to. In the theaters at the Alamo Drafthouse across the U.S., I think at all the locations, possibly.
Oh, really?
A number of them. I don't know if it was all of them or not.
Yeah.
But it is At the Gates with their documentary, All Gates Open, in Search of Absolute Elsewhere.
Yeah, it's Blood Incantation's documentary.
What'd I say?
At the Gates.
Sorry, yes, Blood Incantation. All Gates Open. I don't know why I said that.
No, that's okay.
Too many gates and whatnot. But this is a documentary about them making their album Absolute Elsewhere, which we just saw them play that live.
Yep.
Just a few months ago now.
Yeah. Has it been a couple months?
I think it has been.
Yeah, it probably has. Like early
with
April?
Imper, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they were in Chicago last year at the cemetery.
Yeah.
The Bohemian National Cemetery, and I wanted to go to that so bad, but we were out of town and couldn't make it.
Yep, we were at incarceration, I believe.
Yeah, and I hadn't known anything of them, honestly. That felt like, based on their name and being like a death metal band, that felt like the best venue for that. Like it's just a perfect venue at a cemetery. So I was super excited to see that. We met some people who go on the Headbangers boat. They went to that show. They talked about it. They said it was fucking awesome. So when they were coming through town again, I was like, I got to go see them. I want to see this. Plus, everywhere on like Reddit, everything online, I see this album, Absolute Elsewhere, and everybody's like, holy shit, this thing is fucking awesome. And then when we went to go see it, we were both like blown away by the album.
Yeah.
Like, God damn, this is fucking awesome.
It was a great performance, especially for our first introduction into Blood Incantation.
Yeah.
So
when this was announced, I was like super excited. Like, let's go check this out. And tickets were not that bad. We paid $17.49 with like $2.19 in tax and $2.36 in fees, or flip that. Yeah.
So for Chicago, about a normal movie ticket.
Yeah, $40 or so for us to go see this. So not that bad.
Yeah.
It was our first time at Alamo Drafthouse. I've known of this theater for a while. I've always wanted to go check it out. The theater going experience at Alamo Drafthouse, I wasn't the biggest fan of. It's just a different way to see a film.
Yeah.
Like you just walk into your theater, like without having to scan your ticket or anything, and then somebody comes to your individual spot and like talks to you before the movie. It's a weird thing that I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like you have a server type person, even though, which would be really interesting because she said that they used to do like pen and paper. That would drive me nuts if during the movie, like you had to like call them over and then be like, oh, I want this or whatever. I would get so pissed.
And so they've been in the news lately, Alamo Drafthouse has, because they've switched over to a cell phone based ordering process where there's a QR code on your seat and that's how you order shit throughout the movie. And they even had like a little blurb at the beginning, like, yeah, we know the irony of using your phone during a movie when we tell you not to use your phone, but only use it for ordering shit. My argument is get your fucking ass up out of the seat and go to the concession stand like a normal fucking movie theater. Like having the servers come in and out is so distracting if you're trying to watch a movie.
Yeah.
So that's just one little critique on the Alamo Drafthouse itself that, I wasn't a fan of that. I think you asked me like, well, why did they choose Alamo Drafthouse to do this? My guess is the number of theaters they have across the U.S. It's not a big chain like AMC. So chopping this up and trying to find like the local mom and pops, like the music box here in town, or even Landmark. I guess that's a bigger chain. You could have done Landmark possibly. Yeah. So I don't know why they chose that, but it was our first sort of experience with Alamo Drafthouse, and that whole sort of server thing and the way just things work at Alamo is like, I wasn't a fan of that. So.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a restaurant, bar, and movie theater, and the night we went, the kitchen was closed, so we got some good churro popcorn.
You got some good churro popcorn, yeah. Just the overall experience was not one I enjoyed from like a movie going experience, and there's other better theaters in Chicago that I'll go to for other movies, basically.
I liked it. I had no problem over it, but I'm not as picky about things as you.
But then we get into the movie then, I guess.
Yeah, let's do that, since this is
about the documentary, right? And we're already sort of over a little bit. It's just sort of them in Germany at Hansa's studio, or I can't remember the name of it.
I think so. I think that's right.
I think it's a pretty well-known studio the way they talked about. David Bowie, I think, has done stuff there.
They said it's popular around different types of music, not necessarily metal music.
Right. Yeah. Definitely like 70s, 60s, 80s vibe with like the synthesizers and whatnot. They have a bunch of equipment in the studio that they can rent out to use while in the studio. And they're like, oh my God, this was used on this album. This was used by this artist. And in all honesty, they made so many references to music and musicians and artists that I had no clue who the fuck they were talking about. And I was a little, not pissed off about that, but I was a little like, I don't get this. I don't understand what you're talking about, so I don't understand why it's important. I understand it's important to you, but to me, I don't understand the weight of it.
Yeah, so my comment on that is I got kind of bored during all that because, again, like, I personally don't care if this type of equipment was used on this album in this year or whatever. I could care less. Just put out good music and I'll listen to it. But I understand from them being musicians, and especially the music that they put out with the progressive type of music that they do, that all of that is very important to them and the influences that they had going into this album. So I think that's where it became important, is they were trying to use things that other people had or other artists had used on albums that could have had a sound that influenced a sound in this album. So I think that's where it was going to. However, I don't think they did a very good job of tying it back.
I agree. I agree with that. You know, the vibe they talked about, they're fucking nerds.
Yeah,
so hearing them talk about, like, they go super fucking nerdy into the gear they're talking about. My deadhead friend is the same way. He's the same, like, super very fucking nerdy. And when we get together with his friends at concerts, well, when I do, they all talk the same way. Like, they're much better at knowing the names of musicians, and they just, like, name drop people all the time. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to go see such and such person, or such and such person's going to be playing at this venue, and they're, oh yeah, they're fucking awesome. And then they're like talking to me like, do you know them? Like, nope. I know a few people from bands, but mostly I just know the band name.
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff.
even that sometimes. Right. Sometimes it's like, oh no, I heard one song once.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like they talk the same way that these guys do. Like they get super in depth into the gear, and there's one part where they're showing like an amp that has like the inside two horns that are like spinning in circles. I don't know if you remember that scene, but they showed that amp. I remember going to a concert with Jim, my deadhead friend, and he was talking to me about that type of amp as well. I think it's an amp or it's an organ. I can't remember what it is. But there's this very special type of piece of equipment. And when they saw that, I was like, oh my God, Jim told me about that.
Oh, okay.
And I've got it saved on like a tab on my phone of like, I need to read this.
Yeah. So other than being at or using this studio space, and they were there for a very long time to use it, I didn't understand the beginning of the documentary about how they went into like, we're exploring Germany and this is going into the music and stuff like that. Like that was never tied back either, except for, I believe the vocalist was talking and he was like, oh, my father was born in Germany and this picture was taken in Germany and stuff like that. I think that's who was talking about that.
Let me look that up because I had questions about that too, who the members are. Again, we just sort of found them. It's Paul is the dude you're talking about.
Yeah. He's the vocalist, right?
Yeah, he was the vocalist.
Well, and it kind of makes sense because he does a lot of the talking in the video. So it is really, I mean, I just feel like vocalists are that way where they're more...
I got a little annoyed by the amount of talking he was doing. It felt like whenever anybody else was trying to talk, he would like budge in and then he was like the center focus. The other thing though I noticed is the other people in the band who were just sitting there listening to Paul talk, they do have this sort of glazed over look.
I noticed that too. And I was like, my first thought was...
Weed?
No.
That was my thought.
My thought was, is that what I look like when we record and you're talking?
Yes, it is a little bit sometimes. But no, I thought it was... They spend a lot of time smoking weed as well. Yeah. So I was like, are they just super fucking stoned?
And they could be.
Because that's how I get when I do like edibles and shit. Is I just get zoned out. And can't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that was a little annoying. When they did the Q&A, because there was a Q&A afterwards, the other members were much more vocal and much more chatty than they were in the documentary.
Yeah.
But like the amount of talking he had was a little frustrating to me.
Yeah. And that could just be editing. Like
could be.
They edited it that way. Back to the music part, not necessarily nitpicking the documentary itself, but the part that I did enjoy was really towards the end where they talked about the composition of the songs and bringing people in, and like they had a whiteboard and it was kind of like
had the days like broken down a bit.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really talking about the days thing, but I guess that was at the bottom. But what I was thinking is like they had lines of like what they wanted it, or like the transition of the song, and that's where you can really, when we heard it the first time a couple months ago now, afterwards and probably during that episode, it was like, oh, you can hear like the 70s sound or like this bluesy sound or whatever. And so like to see that on the whiteboard that they had it planned that way. What
vibe they were trying to go for and the transitions in between the vibes.
Yeah, because they went from the 60s, the 70s to the 80s. And so it was like
I don't remember the breakdown in decades. I remember them talking about it, but I wasn't reading the board at that point. So that's something that I'm pretty sure
missed. It's not like broken down like in boxes or anything, but it's like a line is the years. So now and then they played some of the song and stuff like that. And so like you can really hear those parts of like, oh yeah, that does sound like a 60s song.
Going back to the editing real quick, what you mentioned earlier, that was one other aspect of the documentary that I wasn't a big fan of, is there were like really good framed shots with in focus shots, and then there was like shaky hand footage.
Yeah. Like fine footage.
Yeah, there was like
footage or whatever.
There's one point where they're going through the entire studio and talking about the gear and going through the different rooms and whatnot. And it's like just this cell phone camera almost, like zooming super close into the face and then down here to the gear and over here, and it's going in focus, out of focus, and like it hurt my eyes and I started to get a little bit like a migraine almost from like fuck, this is fucking with my head. I don't like this. I don't know if that was the intention, but no, I did not like that. And then like you were saying with like the whole sound and everything, like melding it together, that was really cool toward the end when they did start to like build the songs and start to layer the stuff together. They brought a guest vocalist, and I can't remember who that was.
Yeah, we need to figure out who that is. He's from Germany.
Yeah.
Because I want to figure out what band he's in because I want to listen to his music.
But there was like one point where they're having him do the vocals, and they were playing the music for him, and then he would come in and sing his vocals or say his vocal part. And they do, hey, that was great, super great energy. You're just a tad short. We need to get it done this way again. And they'd go back and run through it again. And they're like, all right, that was super cool. Now let's add another growl or grunt or something. At this point, we'll just give you a throw of hands up to let you do it. And I've been listening to, there's an Archer rephrasing podcast by Pam Poovey, Amber Nash, I think it's her name, where she talks about the making of Archer. And since she's a voice actor, they would just call them in. All they do is read their line, like no context, no nothing. They just read their line. Sometimes there'd be somebody like doing lines back and forth, but mostly, especially for her, it was just, here's your line, say your line 4 or 5 times. All right, now say it with this emphasis, say it this way. I'm surprised they didn't do that with him. Just say your line. I don't understand why you needed to have the music playing at the same time. That was just one thing.
That's probably just what vocalists do.
Those are different types of ways of tackling the same problem.
Yeah.
So that was one kind of interesting thing that I assumed it would have been more like the voice acting, especially for like these guest actors and not actors, singers and vocalists. Yeah. They also had a guest synth dude come in and play some parts on a bunch of synthesizers and whatnot. And they're all just sitting there listening like, holy shit, this is so fucking awesome. And same thing, they were nerding out on like the gear and like he played this song for this other artist doing this thing. And at that moment, it did make me think of when we saw them live. And we're like, you can hear them up there. They're doing everything themselves. But that kind of made me think, like, are some of these synth tracks backed? Or are they up there trying to mimic the same thing?
I don't know if they're... Because they did say that, like, they do synth or they've done synth on other albums themselves. And this one, they wanted it to be perfect. So I think possibly on the album, it's...
This guy
doing it, obviously, because we watched it. But then maybe on stage, it's them doing it. Or like trying to do it.
And that then, when I saw that, it made me think of something I've been thinking about for a while, actually, since we read Mark Morton's book, because he talks a little bit about this in his book as well, where he's like, I really like being in the studio, making the songs, making sure they're layered and getting them perfect and whatnot, getting the tracks down right. I love being in the studio and doing that. But it has made me think a little bit about the studio music and then the live music, because you can't, like, the studio version, you're chasing perfection. The live version, like you have to accept fuck ups, and like it's going to be, they're two completely different songs. So I understand, like, for the live or for the recorded version, hey, let's get this really well known dude, which again bounced right off of me. I didn't know, and do the synth parts, and then when we go out there and we'll do it, we'll just put our own little tweak on it, possibly because we might fuck it up or something. So just that concept between the recorded versus live is an interesting one that I've been thinking a lot about the last couple months.
Which brings me to my next point, or transitioning to this point, that I didn't realize Blood Incantation normally would play their songs live for years before they would record them.
They did say that, yeah, and that took me by shock as well, where they're like, yeah, we would tinker with this song and we play it live, we tinker with it, and then, all right, cool, we think we have it done, let's go ahead and record that for the next album. Where this album, it sounds like it was a COVID album, the way they were describing it.
It almost seems like they started it then, like writing it and stuff. And it does sound like maybe in Oregon or something, they were in a studio and were like kind of messing with it and recording it themselves and listening it back and stuff to get it to the point of recording it here in Germany.
Right. And then they go to Germany and then they go and this is the first time they've written music without playing it live first. And they're like, we were really scared to do that. In my head, I'm like, that's how like, I think every band does music. They write the music first and then they play it live.
I mean, sometimes you get a new song at a concert that hasn't been hasn't come out on recording, but it's been recorded already.
Right.
So it's it was interesting.
Yeah, because they're like, we don't know how this is going to play with the fans. We don't know how this is going to play in a live audience. We don't know how this is going to work on a stage with us on the stage. We don't know how we're going to perform this on the stage. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but like that's the whole point. Like, it took me by surprise. I'm like, holy shit, for real?
Now I'm interested, or not really interested, but I am interested if there's other bands that do it that way.
Yeah, I could see it with like a jam band like Fish or Dead and Company, because when you get up on stage, it is that very improvisational stuff in between. But the root of the song has already been set in stone. Yeah. So I don't know if that's what they're trying to get to or whatnot.
Yeah, and they did say that like now that they play these songs live, because this was like 3 years ago, I think that they said that they recorded these. Because it's taken a long time for the documentary to come out. But that now when they play the songs live, they do tweak it a little bit, or it's a little bit different than the recorded version or whatever. So
yeah, the other thing that I've really loved about the documentary was seeing them go through record shops.
Oh yeah,
and go through the record shop and like he's got a special room and a special room in the back. The one aspect I didn't like about that, again, it was sort of like cell phone footage, because they pull this album out and they're all like, oh my god, you have this album, and they're all talking about the album. And then they do nothing but just put it right back down. They don't show what album it is. I'm like,
or like if they flip it around really quick, it's just like so quick that like it's not like you can even see what it is. Or
I wish it was more of like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. Did you see this type thing?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, because there was one point where the owner of the store is going through his special collection and he's like just pulling them out, and then they talk about it and he puts it right back. And it's like the audience can't see that.
Exactly. There were a few they did show, but most of the time it wasn't. Yeah. Some of the stuff we've been talking about, I think, came up on the Q&A, like the whole talking about making the album, like writing the album without playing it live first. I can't remember where that popped in, if that was a Q&A or...
No, I thought that was in the documentary.
Okay. Yeah. To me, it's melding together, so I can't remember. But they did have that Q&A at the end of it, where the band comes up on stage at one of the, I'm assuming, Alamo Drafthouses. And they were live streaming that to all the screens that they had going. The moderator asked a few generic questions and whatnot, and they gave their answers, and I liked the answers they gave and whatnot. And then they said, "All right, that's it. We're gonna cut it short. We're gonna say goodbye to everyone."
Not cut it short, but like, that's all we have, sort of thing.
It did feel very short, and even the band was like, it felt like it was only like 10 minutes, maybe it was 20. I don't know. But even the band, when he's like, all right, we're going to say goodbye. He's like, wait, I thought we were doing audience questions. And the moderator's like, oh, we'll do them here, but for everyone else, we're going to cut the feed. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why are you doing that? So we sat there, we're packing up our shit, and then we're there for like 2 minutes or something. And then the feed turns back on to the audience questions already in progress. And I'm like, oh shit, so we do get the questions. And then after like a minute of that, it got cut again. Yeah. So honestly, that pissed me off quite a bit. It was like, why the fuck can't you show these questions?
The whole thing, yeah. The other thing, if we're talking about that part of it, is like the documentary got over, and then it was just like the one row of lights came on, but not, that's it. And then it was just like a gray screen, and then everybody's kind of like, what's going, like, dead what do we silence. Do? Yeah.
Nobody was talking. Yeah. No, like, sort of announcement, like, here's what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Because, like, nobody really explained to us, like, how it was going to work. Like, that they were going to play the movie and then they'll get the live stream up or whatever. It was just kind of like, okay, like, what do we do
The intro
now?
Was, like, a couple music videos, I think, for the into the album or whatever. And I figured that's where, like, that sort of would happen of like, here's what you can expect tonight, here's like after the screening there'll be this. But even then there was like no communication, just went straight into the music videos, that went straight into the documentary, that little pause, and then straight into the Q&A. But I do wish there was a little bit of sort of
communication.
Here's what you can expect. There'll be a break if you want to go to the bathroom or something like that,
Yeah.
But there really wasn't. If I could change this around, I loved this concept. Like, I already love going to the movie theaters and seeing like music related shit. But like, if I could change the concept around a little bit, I would have liked to have seen this as part of their tour, where they come to like Chicago for 2 days. Either the first day is the concert or the first day is the documentary, where they then get up on stage and do a Q&A.
So sort that of like, everybody gets it.
Right. Sort of like Kevin Smith did with his sort of roadshow things he does. Yeah. And you can do that at the Alamos if you want. You can do that at like any mom and pop place that you're playing, like the Music Box. You can go to the Orient in Milwaukee. That's an amazing theater. And then you can check out these really cool movie theaters that like are mom and pops or are smaller. You can hit those up. So if that's what you want to help support and whatnot, you can do that. But then you can have the documentary where you talk about the album. And then the next night you can go see the show. And you can sell tickets to just the movie and just the concert, or a combined ticket that gets you into both. That's kind of what I would have liked to have seen.
That would have been interesting. That way we got a live Q&A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was curious what the Q&A was going to be. Like, is everybody, like, are they going to live stream us in? Like
I kind
of
thought, call? So I don't know if other offices do this, but like we have this thing called Slido where it's like a QR code. And if you have questions for like the all staff meetings, you can like, submit your question or whatever. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, oh, is there going to be like a QR code up on the screen and then you can like ask your questions?
I didn't even think about that, because all of the cons that I go to are starting to go to that for their main panels, because they don't want people just standing up on in mics and whatnot.
Or like walking around with a
microphone. So at the beginning of the panel, when you have like your Avengers up there, you take a screenshot of the QR code, you write your question, and then the moderator picks and reads what they want. Yeah. That's a better approach than I had. In my head, it was just, here's a Zoom, like a grainy Zoom call with all of us up there. But that is so much better, actually. But then that way we could have been involved with the questions as well.
If you wanted to ask a question, Especially for the audience participation ones, which we didn't even get to hear one of the questions or a full answer before it like clicked on and clicked back off. So
all in all, I've really enjoyed the event. I have, issues obviously with the movie, the other documentary, in terms of like what I said with like the shot footage and whatnot, fucking with my eyes. The theater itself, I wasn't the biggest fan of. There's things I definitely tweak and change, but the biggest disappointment for me was definitely that Q&A of being cut short. And even like the ones with the moderator, those were just pretty generic stock questions. I'm like, this is cool. I like to hear the band speak, but like, your questions, like,
it's almost like an interview where it's like just standard questions.
Right, exactly.
They did allude that they're maybe doing another one.
They did. They kind of hinted at like Metallica, like they had their Saint Anger. We're gonna have our Saint Absolute Elsewhere or something like that.
So maybe if they do another one, it'll be a little bit more honed in or more. I mean, generally the second one's better. So,
or again, like I said, my idea of tour this around with a concert attached to it. I would fucking love that. But hey, you know what? This was a fun, unique experience that we don't always get with music. So definitely fun, definitely worth the time. And I'll keep my eye out for other things like this, because this is something I love doing when we have the availability to do it. So yeah, we'll end it there with fun little movie. Get out there and check it out.
Bye.